welcome everybody. Good to see you all, especially the ones that I haven't seen a few weeks ago right here, right now. And I really love it. We seem to be a wild mix between participants of the Third Attractor Laboratory and obviously people that are interested in what we did there, and probably participants next time, who knows? Welcome everybody. And so this is a session that we set up to share a little bit what we did in the co-creating the Third Attractor Laboratory here in Tiruvannamalai. And this call, I thought, could have kind of three parts. I will probably start with setting some context about what was the goal of the Third Attractor Lab and how it unfolded and what we did and what we didn't do, just for everybody that was not there to get as much context as possible. Because I'm very aware that when we all start to talk about our experience, which we want to do, then I would like this to fall into kind of a container of context, what this was meant to be, what we wanted to do, and some of the learnings. And then in the second part, I want to open it up to all the participants to add and to share their experience. And I'm especially curious how you came home now, what is staying with you, what you take with you, what are you still thinking about, and probably also where would you like to follow up with? What would you like to follow up with? Because I can say for myself, I'm thinking a lot about where this all could go and what are the right next steps and what we could do together, what we can each do in our own world space where we are active and acting. And then in the third part, I want to open it up to questions from everybody that was not in the laboratory, questions that you guys have for us, for me, about the Third Attractor, about what we did, about what you think would need to happen, so that we kind of have a full full layout of all of our experiences and questions, and most probably not very many answers. That's one of the things I can already say. This laboratory was not meant to find answers. It was mainly meant to set the ground for us to work together and to hopefully be able to start to help to catalyze change. Does that make sense for everybody? Cool. So part of the context is that before the Third Attractor Lab, we had a retreat in memory of Andrew, a 6-day retreat in memory of Andrew. And it happened that most of the retreat participants of the In Memory of Andrew retreat also stayed for the Third Attractor Laboratory. We ended up being 21 people in the lab. And as you probably all know, our jumping off point was my conversations with 27 conversation partners about co-creating the Third Attractor. And as you can imagine, as everybody has full lives, not all the participants had listened to all the 27 conversations. That was just not possible for people that had a full life and are involved in their own professional life and private life and everything. So our starting point was mixed between people that have done a deep dive into the topic already and people that scratched a little bit on the surface, and people that went kind of into kind of half of the conversations. So what we wanted to do first, and what we did first, is to set the ground, not about the Third Attractor, but actually about the state of the world. From the beginning, we felt that we wanted to be together in realizing that the state of the world needs change. And that probably sounds trivial, but the exercise that we did, and we used Big Mind for this, showed that it's actually worth to do it and to go into the grief about the state of the world and to really go deep into this heart space and soul space where we can feel that change needs to happen. And it was interesting at that point how the group as a whole and many of us again and again felt we wanted to escape into transcendence. We wanted to go to hope and to create something new. And it was quite challenging to stay just with the grief and the tragedy of where we are at today. And it was very, very worth to do this exercise and to set this shared ground among us and between us of grief and mourning the state of the world without becoming desperate. It was not sticky, if I can say that. It was done in a very beautiful and good way by all of us just leaning into this question and this voice, as we used Big Mind, which is a voice dialogue technique to voice the state of the world through our own voices. So that was an excellent starting point. And from there, then we went into getting in touch with the third attractor topics. And I don't want to go into the details of the different third attractor topics, of the different aspects. If you want to know more about some of the insights from the third attractor conversations that were kind of the basis for our conversation, it's all on our website that I can share again. But our goal was to really let all the aspects of a potential third attractor be. I even have difficulty to say what it was, because it couldn't penetrate us. It was not a deep dive. You can imagine, first day, first afternoon, you cannot deep dive into a topic like this. But what we did is we created groups that touched upon all the different values and aspects of what it means to create a third attractor. And at that point, it became very clear and very humbling how big the topic was. And from the beginning, I think it was clear for all of us that the third attractor, in a way, is not something that we can create with our mind, that we can create with just our rational facilities. And we got very much in touch with the fact that the third attractor is more like something that we feel like wants to emerge, and it needs us to make room for this emergence to be able to happen. And that was an important insight and an important starting point for us to work together. And then we also got very concrete over the next 2 or 3 days by using the integral framework lightly, especially the 4 quadrants. My assumption is that you probably all are familiar with the 4 quadrants, like the inner and our outer experience or reality, and the I perspective and the we, the collective perspective. And we use that framework not to make the whole thing theoretical, but because it felt like an intelligent way of structuring our investigations in the third attractor and go deeper in all the 4 quadrants. But before we dove into that, we took a whole day for a workshop to go through the structure stages of consciousness, from using the spiral dynamic framework and going from beige to turquoise in a group process where, again, we were voicing the different structure stages and felt into the structure stages in a way that we could feel why the earlier structure stages had to expand into something new. We could feel what the reasons were in the past, so that new structures, new complexity had to arise from less complexity. And some of you probably have done the workshops about spiral dynamic stages with me, and we did a similar structure, similar type of workshop over the course of a day. And that was very helpful, again, to set the ground, especially to set the ground for our realization how many different value systems and structures of consciousness are existing in parallel in our world right now, and how much this is one of the reasons there is so much polarization, and it's one of the reasons why we are having the state of the world that we have, that all these different value systems kind of battle each other, and there has not yet been a higher integration in any way. And then, as I said, we went into the 4 quadrants. In the upper right, upper left, like the inner eye quadrant, we discussed a lot about inner development, inner qualities like presence and emotional regulation and discernment and resilience and humility, and a big one, ability to stay with not already knowing, just to stay with the uncertainty that we all feel in the world right now. But then, and I'm curious to hear later from other participants, for me, then the upper right quadrant, where we went into the outer of the eye, or we called it the observable behaviors, made a very strong impact on me and my thinking about the quadrants and what it actually needs for us to change and for the world to change. Because we talked a lot about observable behavior, that while we all are very connected to kind of our inner development, and we all acknowledge that development is important and spiritual development is important, we realized very clearly and strongly that there is a conscious step that we have to make in the right quadrants to translate this inner development into outer observable behavior. And that this is a big part of creating the new, that whatever we think inside of our heads doesn't change the world fundamentally. It's a good starting point. It's an excellent starting point. It's a substantial starting point, but it's not what in the end actually changes the world. So that was a very interesting insight. And then in the lower left, in the internal we space, we did some experimentation with groups that didn't have an assigned leader or facilitator, where we had a big group working out what it takes for a culture, for a community to actually express these new values, or what would these new values be that a group or a community would want to express, would need to express, that could be called a third attractor community. And it was interesting to see that this was not an easy task, even with a group that is dedicated to development, dedicated to spirit, that has for sure a significant development of consciousness done already. Like it's conscious people coming together in such a group. And still, it was not an easy task to then come together and find kind of the group dynamic and the way we want to, the new ways we want to find to, for example, to take decisions or to come to agreements about certain things, important things like the values that we want to share. And I think it was impressive for everybody to see that it's actually still difficult, even when we are all well-meaning and want to lean into finding solutions, and probably also sobering to see how big a task this actually is. And in the same category of insights, we also had a little decision-making exercise where we tried to make a decision about a very simple question. And I don't want to go into the details, they don't matter, but I think everybody will agree this was one of the most powerful moments in our laboratory when we realized how quickly a group like ours still could split into two, just because two different opinions were in the room about a very small question of a procedure. Do we want to do this or do we want to do that? It was almost as simple a question as do we want to have pizza or do we want to have penne, something like it was not about food, but it was not an existential question, let's put it like this. It was a procedural question. So that was a very interesting moment that I was very happy that it happened and made a deep impression on me. Again, a humbling impression before the huge task that we just saw, that, oh, wow, even for a group like ours that comes together for creating a new culture, it's so difficult to find a solid way a solid new way of making decisions. Then again and again, we tried to integrate practice into the daily life. So we started with meditation, we ended with meditation. We felt that was very helpful for holding the laboratory together. We integrated workout, we integrated time for gym and swimming and whatever people felt drawn to do for their body. And there was this felt sense that in the end, it only shows whatever we think about how co-creating a third attractor could work, only shows when we actually try to do something together, co-create together. And one experiment that we then did, and Sarah I'm sure will say a little bit more about that, is that we started to do symbol building. In groups, we went out onto the land that we have here next to the Manifest Nirvana ashram and started to build symbols as a co-creative act of working with our hands and with material and creating something that was meant to symbolize the third attractor. And everybody found that very helpful in terms of actually doing something, in terms of getting out of our minds, but also as an exercise to use different parts of ourselves to express what we actually want to do. And we ended with a ritual, and we ended with an attempt to make commitments that we can take into our lives, observable behaviors again, like we were trying to express what observable behaviors towards the third attractor do we all want to take into our daily lives. And it was very clear in this last round that we were all, how do I put that correctly? And it will be interesting to hear from many of you. For me, it was like this mix of excitement for what we did together, and there was an uplift in what we went through in these 5 days. And at the same time, there was a sobriety. It felt sober where we stood, and also the commitment felt sober. Not kind of this over-exaggerated excitement where you kind of know that 2 days later it will all kind of calm down and disappear. There was a soberness and a seriousness. And I will end with this. The probably most important insight was one that was also my most important insight from the 27 conversations. We all felt that one of the most important skills we have to learn to be able to be co-creators for the Third Attractor is to learn to stand in the fire of complexity. Because if nothing else, what we certainly all experienced over these 5 days was that the task is so huge and the topics are so huge, and we can only just touch them lightly. So you stay there in the middle of this complexity, and you get this insight that, oh wow, that's most probably the one skill that I have to learn first, to be able to stand in the fire of this complexity without collapsing and without making it smaller than it is, just so that I can handle it. You know what I mean? We all kind of tend to escape, in a way, the size and the hugeness of what we are confronted with. And I think if nothing else, what the laboratory really created in all of us is this humility in front of the big task, and this sense of, yeah, I want to stand in this complexity and participate with all I can, wherever I am in my life, in my daily life, in my profession, in my age, or what I can do. But I wanna be of service for this huge task. Sarah, you wanna start to add here, and then we can invite more people into it. Oh yeah, wait. Yeah, here we go.
Yes. I mean, I think what you said in the beginning, that we didn't arrive at many answers, I think is quite accurate, because it was more the sense that we stood with more questions in the end. Yeah, I probably am just saying the same thing that you were saying, but I think what I took with me was that this standing in this complexity is very different from a more pluralistic, that I see all these different perspectives, and I know that they are here, and I accept them and see that they have value. That's a postmodern place to stand. That this had it was very intense. It was a different way of holding the complexity, which was very implicating. And it's almost like a physical sensation that you have to. It's not something out there, the complexity. It's something that we are. So, and I still don't know exactly how to where to put the finger on the difference. But this is something that still stays with me. That is a very different way of facing complexity than a pluralistic one. And another quality which is related with this is this quality of staying with the process. And I felt that was something that was there, and it feels like almost like nothing, but you can see that it's very important that we actually stay together, not knowing where we are going, not even thinking that we can solve anything or arrive, but this collective commitment to stay in the process and try to hold more also is something that stays with me as a quality. And again, it's heartbreaking because, I mean, like you said, it's more to realize what we are facing is enormous and complex. And if there is a quality, it's also this of holding more space, creating more space, and being willing to stay with, letting go of all kind of ideas of I can passively sit back and then God will save us, or a government will save us, or a new technology will save us. And it felt like we all in different ways were leaning in and staying in with the complexity. And interestingly enough, I don't know if it's hopeful, but it doesn't feel like it feels very strong also to do this together, but in a very sober way.
Yeah. Thank you. Fahim, what were your afterthoughts as you are home now?
Yeah, hi everyone. Afterthoughts about the retreat. I mean, it was great to have. I know I agree with everything you guys have just said, and particularly with Sarah, the complexity and how grounded we have to be. But I also felt that at the end, it was nice to be with everyone and seeing everyone's own expression of what it meant for them. So that felt something doable as well. So, some people said like, oh, so I said, I'm going to work on this course. It's going to be my expression of something. And it felt like, and then other people said they're going to do different things. And with all the complexity, we were kind of, we talked for days about many things. And you can't pin them down as to, oh, I understood everything, or I've got a solution for even some of it. But the fact that all of that was informing what we felt we needed to do next in ourselves, that felt doable and graspable. And also felt, and we've been talking subsequently with some friends of ours yesterday about something similar with, very complex political situations, for example, one of them. And, sometimes you just have to do what you can do that's doable, but you're holding that whole context in mind, because if you try and chase the whole complexity of it all, you can't get anywhere. So nothing happens. So I felt that at the end when we did this circle where we said, what does it look like for us? What's our behavior look like? That was really good because it felt like we were holding that it's impossible to fix everything and, where to start, but we were also informing that into our actions. So that was my main takeaway, really, at the end.
Cool. Thank you. So who else of the participants would like to add something? You want to just raise the hand and then... Yeah, Vincent?
Yes, hi everyone. And to add to what you already shared is I feel more equipped to stand in the fire of complexity. And even I could add that to be able to stay free in the fire of complexity. And what I appreciate the most is this feeling of being more equipped to have something more rationalized. And I still have this feeling of being in a whole cube with 4 cubes, which are the 4 quadrants, but not something abstract outside. But you were able, with the different workshops, what I find really impressive is that you were able to immerse ourselves. And then there was a physical understanding that not only intellectual, and with also what Sarah, you help us with the doing. So I feel that when I realized it, that the world outside is complex, very complex, and that was the making us very humble, but also saying I am complex, and when we are together, we are complex. And it's not only others and not only outside, and they do that or they could do this and they would do that, but it was really pointing us to how do I behave and how we behave together. And where struck me the most is that, for example, in spiral dynamics, there is different levels of values, and we all have one center of gravity, that preference, values that the way we act is really visible. That's pointers. But the group, then we were able to manifest the group center of gravity of values. And when we had to take the decision, when you were talking about this moment that we have together, at the beginning I was thinking, because we are a group, a collective, that will be easier to take a collective decision. But in fact, it was very difficult, because this center of gravity put everybody into a kind of middle, and not pointing a vertical ascent, but trying to make a decision together. That was the most value. That how can we stay together? But that was a demonstration that it's not easy, even to go forward, to develop higher value all together. It's not that easy. And so I really feel also very more humble in the face of what I have to do, we have to do, and how can I affect in the good way, and even good became more complex to define what is good.
Yeah.
But then that it started already to affect all the decisions that I have to take.
Great, thank you. Angelina?
Yeah, I found it much more challenging than I expected in some ways, and just unexpected reactions, because it was so humbling and so challenging to watch this wonderful group of people, 20 or so people, really struggling with simple decision, but then also overcoming those places, overcoming as a group, and then growing into a kind of what Vincent was talking about, this kind of a center that was the group center that became very palpable. And it wasn't, it was the group, and as I was going home, I was still feeling that the groupness, the group me, and even since, over the last week. And it was the process and realizing, letting in the sheer complexity and the magnitude of this, of what we're facing, was also very exhausting. I mean, I came home and I got sick and I needed to sleep. So, I could really tell that it had kind of wiped me out, But it was an experience that was not what I expected, but in many ways better than what I expected. I mean, I don't know what I expected, or if I expected anything, but it was anyway very, very fulfilling to have that group experience, true group experience.
Cool, thank you. One more probably, and then we can open for question and go more into a conversation. Yeah, Josephine?
I can say something. First of all, I agree with everything that is being said so far. And what stayed the most with me is that I felt in this concrete laboratory that we did, that we moved forward together. And I don't know exactly how to put that into words, but it was very concrete. And when I came home, it stayed with me. And the most important thing is, as many as of you already expressed it, I feel more able to bear complexity without needing to know an answer or without moving away from the insecurity, which is very valuable. And I noticed that it's just part of who I am now. And that's kind of what I meant with we moved forward together. Something changed in a group as we came together, but also in me personally. And then in this also feeling more strength to do what is necessary and to be up for this incredible complex task to contribute something to a world that is kind of disrupting and to do at least something that contributes to a better world. And it's certainly a strength that I haven't felt before, and it is a result of our laboratory.
Mm.
I wanted to say something more, but I lost it somehow. So I'm
Okay.
it's
Probably come
no,
back.
it's good. Yeah.
But Aniek wanted to say something, no?
Yeah, yeah, I agree also with everything that has been said so far. For me, this lab was like a test of truth for me individually and also as a part of the group. Because yeah, I recognize that it was challenging, it was difficult, much more than expected, and especially when listening to the dialogues you had with everybody. So it was really like enthusiastic and put me and us in fire. But when you are in the middle of it, it's more difficult and it's really challenging. And I could see also in myself and also in the group like a kind of inertia or the difficulty like to be pulled up, pulled onwards as well. Like something like kind of gravity that is pulling us down somewhere, even if everybody had goodwill to lean into and to try to find out. So it was like, for me, a question now I'm dealing with. What does that mean, like to take seriously responsibility for it? What does that requires from me in terms of discipline, in terms of awareness, in terms of putting attention, in curiosity? So it's like, something that is moving inside from something very shallow, maybe in more depth. That's the movement that the lab has.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I want to open now for questions. If the ones that have not been here, do you have any questions for us? Are you curious about certain aspects? Does it make sense what we are all saying? I realized it's quite challenging to give such a quick overview of what happened in 5 days.
Thank you. It was really, really good to hear of what you individually and as a group went through. I'm sure that there's a lot more to it. I mean, and I appreciate you sharing. I guess I'm curious because a few of you mentioned, and Daniela, you mentioned about that one point that was particularly sticky, right? And I was just wondering what did you sense like individuals experience or response to what I would say was it like a breakdown then of that collective structure or trying to come to a next decision? And then what was the sticking point to be able to see it through? And then what was there a new learning, or do you see what I mean? It's like what was it that stayed so that, I mean, it's okay if, let's say, the group still collectively like broke apart, but then what was people's response to a breaking apart? And yeah, I'm just trying to see what was the learning from that?
Yeah, I think that's a very good question, Soo-Kin, and I can try to answer it, but then also open it up. I would say my personal main learning was, don't take anything for granted, not even that a group of 21 people can take a simple decision easily. Like what happened was, it was not a complete breakdown or anything. It was no drama. It was just a showcase of how quickly we create two, because it was a decision between two possibilities. And very quickly, it created two camps, more or less, yeah? And then very quickly, one camp defended their view and the other one the other. And you could see so clearly in the room, oh, that's how polarity starts and probably ends, because there was this feeling in the room for a moment, at least for me, where I felt like if we now would split this group in two, the ones that want this solution and the ones that want that solution, and would split them and have them work for a few days separately, we would have two camps that would speak about each other as the ones that want linear and the other ones that want flow. And we could have created a big thing out of it. And that just was a shock in a way, to see how easily this happens with an absolutely not relevant question. Were there other insights there that anybody would like to share? Yeah, JP? Just a second, Rodney. I think JP wanted to add something to the decision, and then I'll come back to you, Rodney. Sorry.
Yes, hi everybody. I think, Soo-Kin, the biggest difference was, until now in all these years, there used to be in a group like a hierarchy with one leader, and it seems in this group there was like multiple leaders. It would just, like, within an hour it would sort of shift from one person to the other, and I think that was like the fundamental big difference in these. Intersubjective non-duality had certain principles, as of one was like one singular leader, and now it had multiple. And I think that made all the difference for me, or as I experienced those groups. And therefore the problem solving and the coming together got better. It actually kept because we had multiple leaders, it kept the group together instead of the two camps that Daniela just pointed out. And you could actually see in the room that it didn't really matter what the problem or the tension was, because we had this like sort of multiple leadership. If we didn't figure it out after like 5 or 10 minutes, we did, and somebody else would come with something else, and it would sort of dissolve, and creatively it would keep on moving. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, Rodney, now back to you.
Thank you. First, I want to say thank you for this summary. It's deeply moving what you attempted and what you accomplished, and how it unfolded. And it'll take me a long time just to absorb that. But one question that came up in your observations for me, and I am very curious about, is among the aspects in this huge complexity is to be curious about the iterative nature of the path from this point on. In what aspects are to the the qualities of leadership, the qualities of followership, the qualities of participation that make our ability to move through all of this complexity and avoid the pitfalls of polarization, the ditches on both sides of this path. It seems I'm reminded of a quote from Tagore, something to the effect that he who plants trees never realizing that he will sit under the shade of those trees has begun to understand the meaning of life. It's that long-term perspective, how we relate in our part of this relay is what I'm curious about.
Yeah, I would say my personal answer would be, or my insight from the lab and from the conversations is a very strong sense. It's this iteration that you're pointing to. It's has to be, I'm saying has to be, I don't know if this is true, but for me, it feels like it has to be that inner development comes first and beyond ego development comes first, or at least less selfishness development. If we don't want to reach too high, like inner development creates outer development, hopefully creates inner development, outer development, inner development, but the importance of inner development first for everything we might want to achieve.
Yeah.
It got even clearer to me. It always was my sense that this is kind of how it can happen, but if we cannot go beyond ego, beyond self-concern, then there is no way we can create the new structures that are needed for a different world.
Thank you.
Yeah, Vincent?
That's heavy, and I really think you're on to.
And maybe just to add to your answer, Daniela, because that was really a demonstration of that. Because of the first retreat. So to speak about, even if there were not planned to be connected or to be close, there wasn't really, it was really two different purposes, the two retreats. But we saw the impact of the inner development of having 6 days with 3 hours every morning that put the ego on the back seat. That helps a lot. 3 hours of meditation during 6 days and having intersubjective dialogues for 6 days also, that how much we saw the impact of the second retreat. There was an inner development, or even if it kept for 1 week, 5 days, but that creates, even Sarah, you talk about the space, but the inner development, the being able to self-control, to not being so reactive, that was helping a lot from the lab. So as a demonstration of what you said, Daniela.
Thank you.
Fahim, did you have your hand up?
Yeah, no. So I was thinking about the what you said about the inner development as well. I walked away a little bit more and thinking about, is it Rodney, your question? I felt because the way you structured the retreat, or how it came out, where we held the state of the world, and I'm talking about the second retreat, where we held the state of the world in the big mind approach, where you could feel, and it was very powerful, where we really were voicing and grounding ourselves in the state of the world as we see it and experience it. That was really important to have, I guess, a context for inner development, because often inner development is just and it's not I'm not taking away from what you said, Daniela, but it can become a process in itself which becomes divorced from the necessity of action. And particularly doing the retreat in India, where the greatest dialogues in the Upanishads and the Vedas are all about how to do the right action. It was just felt that was very important to have in there as well. So for me, that was we need to be anchored in the state of the world, but not lost in the world. So for me, and then you find your own dharma within that. What's the right action for you, collectively and individually? So that for me was really powerful, and I felt inherent during the whole time as well. Particularly it was strong for me anyway. So
yeah. No, that's a very good addition. Thank you for him. I totally agree. Imelda, yeah.
Yeah, thank you, everybody. Thank you, Daniela, for sharing your experiences of basically your 2 retreats and the dynamics and the learnings that came out of it. But when I was listening to you all, I was just having this cascade of reminders of the fact, it's something that Margaret Mead said a long time ago, and she said there's nothing changes the world except small groups, and it's the only thing that ever will. And I began to think of all the small groups that brought about change in the world. Thomas Bjorkman has written a book called The Nordic Secret, and it's all about small groups in Scandinavia going into the woods without books and with no writing material, no pens, no paper, no nothing. And it was about meditation and conversation. And the hypothesis of that is that it led to the whole very unique Scandinavian experiment, if you like, and bringing about the kind of society that they have up there. Again, down to small groups. I was reminded by, about Prigoghine's thesis of order out of chaos, which meant that we can go in trajectories from the less complex to the most complex. And I love that idea. And in my own profession, I saw a small group of people develop a whole sphere of influence in the wider professional community. So I'm very, I suppose, honoring of small groups, and I would think, keep at it, guys. I think this is the way to go. And one of the things that struck me when you taught is that sometimes in conversations, it can be useful to have, I don't know if this would fit for you at all, but I'll just throw it out there anyway. A little small reflecting group for every conversation, so that if you do get caught sometimes in the dualities or a conflict of opinions or something like that, that it's almost like that third attractor. It's standing out with a different kind of reflection, that a few people can give reflection. So it brings in that idea that I think Vincent was talking about, the multiple leadership, but it brings it in from within the group. But I think that you just keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you so much. That's very encouraging, and I love that you kind of believe in the small groups, because sometimes it's also overwhelming, no, to be a small group and see the big task. I mean, I feel like this. It's like, what are we doing here? The world is so big.
The EU was set up around dinner tables.
Yeah.
With Jean Monnet bringing small groups of people around in different homes around Europe. And I know this because a friend of mine, her father was part of that, and she was part of that as a younger person. So I think we must hold on to that and stick with each other and stick together.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, Victor?
This is probably more of an observation, but there's a question in there too. But I loved what you said about, Daniela, about your realization that you have to do more than the inner work. That has to inform the outer work. And so much of the culture in the city in which you held this lab is about do nothing. You do your inner work.
That's so true.
And
we are the rebels here, Victor. We are the rebels here.
I love it. But I'm wondering if you felt a sense of that you were in a small group trying to do a complex thing inside of a larger culture that thinks that might not be necessary, that all you have to do is your inner work. So did you get a sense of that tension between those two forces?
No, Victor, we did not. And there is a simple reason why we did not. That could have happened, but we didn't have any participants from that culture that you are mentioning here. People, the Arunachala people, the Neo-Advaitans, didn't know about this event. You know, it was on application, the Third Attractor Lab.
Mm-hmm.
And because that could have created a lot of tension that would probably not even have been so beneficial. And you know where we are here, out of Tiruvannamalai,
Mm-hmm.
you can create your own space that is in itself coherent. I did sense what you are pointing to in my conversations about God that I had before the retreats. I had this Wednesday conversations about God where I invited people from Tiruvannamalai here, and we had conversations about the sacred and God. And there, what you are talking about here came up a lot, like this sense of we just have to go inside and not do anything, just realize that there is no doer and nothing needs to be done. And that is, when you're rooted in a philosophy as we are here, it's a challenging conversation you have then with people. And yeah, also not one that easily can be solved. And then sometimes you just have to let go and say, okay, everybody has to find their own way, no?
Yeah, I noticed that taking the action out into the larger world, there's so many in the new age type communities that it is all about the me and not the we, the inner work. And
yeah.
So there is that threshold to get over of how do we bring people along. It is a big task. It's a huge task. And I love what you said about you keep that in mind and it informs your personal tasks, but you don't try to solve it all. So thank you all for coming together. And my final question is, when are you doing it again?
When shall we do it again? When are you coming? We don't know yet, Victor. It's all a floating process. Yes,
just adding to this point, because I think on the one hand, the facing what would this look like on the outside brought this quality of humility that we all felt, and at the same time, what you pointed to, Fahim, that it also became very concrete that we all expressed what we were now going to go out and do. So I feel these two qualities, on one hand, deep humbleness in terms of what it actually means to act and express and hold in the world these insights. And on the other hand, it also made it very concrete that we could all do something. And I think for that reason, there was hope also. It wasn't like ending in despair. Yeah.
Yeah, Fahim.
Sorry, just trying to figure out the controls again. Yeah, I mean, obviously, I've come back from India now, and I just wanted to add this thing that Victor, you were just talking about this, and Daniela, this idea of the culture in the Tiruvannamalai where the teaching is seen, you know, Ramana's teaching and so on, are seen as this retreat into the non-action world of non-action and non-doership and so on. I just think that's a very complex reading of, or not a complex reading of what that particular culture and teaching really point to. And I think it's a kind of it is something that is a trap you know, but it's not necessarily what the Indian philosophy points to. It's actually much more about action. So I just wanted to bring that out because I just think it's an interpretation where a lot of people may go there and find some kind of inner peace or some inner experience of relaxation of the mind, but that's half the teaching of that particular culture and that mind. I know, Daniela, you know that, so that's, you know, I just want to
Victor knows it also, but Victor also knows the Tiru crowd and knows how many people have this half interpretation, no, and miss the other half. I think that's just the predicament here.
Right. So then what I was going to add to that. So that's cool. And then this idea that we're working together as as in this group collective, working through all of these different multiple concepts and ideas of how to solve things. What was interesting to me was to not be subsumed into some kind of we group, which then there is no I that can act. And I thought we did that really well, because at the end of it was very cool that it felt like there was 20 individuals being more themselves rather than but that created the we, which was really, I think, a subtlety of this kind of work, where it's really isn't, because it's very easy to think, you know, there's a collective and then you suddenly become this group mind and all of that stuff. But because I don't know the people on this call necessarily, so I find it really important, because we have worked in this area for a long time. And what was very cool is that there was a lot more individuation called for, and that was a really nice feeling at the end. You felt you were meeting individuals, but we'd created some kind of value structures which were very dynamic between us as we went through the process. So that was, and I think that's the work, because then you can do anything in that space. A lot of things can come up and flow through, and we can also act. So I think that's one of the powers of doing it in the way that we did it, Daniela. I think, you know, there's a lot in that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. That's a very good point that you're bringing in here. It's and that is important. I think it's the only way we can do the work right now. It's not about us all merging into one seamless thing. It's about us growing up and being able to show up in the best possible way, whatever that means for each and every one of us, and still be together in this shared ground that we all know about and that we all connect in. Yeah. Great. Are there any other questions? Otherwise, I feel like this is a very rounded call. And we just want to tease everybody so that next time you come and join us. We don't want to reveal everything. Okay. Then thank you, everybody, for being here. And I'm sure we see each other one way or the other. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.